Escape Room, the first movie of this year that we saw in January. Because January is the first month of the year. And you know what they say about January films? Steven, you know what they say about January films? Exactly. So, Escape Room is a horror film that is based upon the activity that you see throughout malls and in cities. They've become more relevant over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
There's one specifically at our mall.
There's a couple of them throughout whatever city it is that we live in. And they've exploded in popularity. They really have. I've done a couple of them myself. I'm sure you have as well.
I actually have not.
Oh, you haven't? You've never done one?
I've been wanting to.
I actually did one in Chicago.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what are they like, the experiences? Are they fun, at least, or are they cheesy?
It depends on where you go. So some of them are, a little bit cheesy. They have like different themes. Like the one that I did was, the two that I did, one of them was like a bank heist. You had to like steal a set amount of money before time expired. And then the other one was like an apocalypse setting. We had to find like a cure to get out of the room.
Okay.
And we failed both times. But they're kind of fun. They give you like clues hidden throughout the room. They do give you hints. I had a walkie-talkie with me that we could ask you like, hey, we need a little bit of a hint to get out of this room. But no one died. Nobody died.
I've been wanting to check them out for a very long time. There's one downtown which has like a haunted house setting, and that's the thing that really kind of sparks my interest, is that there are different scenarios that these rooms supply. And obviously when you have something that's been gaining a lot of traction for a couple of years, it's most likely going to be made into a movie, especially like something that's like a moneymaker essentially.
Hopefully a better movie though.
So this is Escape Room, where, what was it, like 6 people?
Yeah, it started. I believe there were 6 people. 6
people are invited to this random escape room from like around the world or something like that.
Well, around the city of Chicago.
The city, yeah, there we go. And it turns out that this said escape room is actually very dangerous. People can die in this escape room, and they try to figure out ways to escape said escape room in order to survive.
The movie starts out kind of, full throttle. You see this guy fall through the ceiling, and he's got to find a way out of this room before the room shrinks and eventually crushes him. And, it's kind of like fast-paced, kind of panicky, gets your heart racing, and it's a hell of a way to start a film just because, you're just get in, you sat down, I remember thinking to myself specifically, like, this will kind of take a little bit of a minute to get going. Yeah. So I was like, kind of like, no, I'm not going to pay too much attention at the beginning. But like it starts out pretty hardcore, and then
before we continue, this movie's bad. Okay, like we just want to say that this movie is like actually like really bad. Of course,
hence
we knew it was going to be bad.
Merlot.
What?
Hence the bottle of Merlot.
oh yeah. So you were talking about that opening scene where like we see someone trying to escape. You said escape room.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly that this was going to be shit when we saw that, because the script's actually really lazy.
Yes.
You see while he's like trying to escape this place, he's talking to himself.
He's verbalizing exactly what he's doing.
There's nobody there whatsoever.
Nobody there.
Like, I gotta put these 4-digit codes and stuff like that.
Like I need this and I need that, and look at these numbers, and
it's like so bad, like or lazy at least. Like Batman and Robin, like the comics.
Oh God!
So the reason why they added Robin in the comics was because they needed a way for Batman to verbalize and explain things, like because like in the first issues he thinks to himself,
Yeah.
And when you have like a boy,
like asides and things like that.
When you have like a sidekick, he's like unaware of some things, or maybe he's like sometimes dim-witted, and he explains to the sidekick like what's going on. So that's why essentially Robin was there, like when he was there in the comics. So that's just a lazy way of like explaining things when your character has to verbalize a lot of this stuff.
And even throughout the film, when they receive these packages that are the invitations to this escape room, they read the cards that they get to themsels.
Yes, in the same exact tone.
In the exact same tone.
They synchronize.
Yes,
it's like
because it's so cliche in like how they pick these people, because if you've ever seen like Cabin in the Woods or Saw 5 or any like survival of the fittest type film, they always fit a similar demographic. You always have the dumb guy who's there for comic relief. You have the smart person. You have the tough guy. You have the guy who's kind of a liability. And in this case, we have the extra person who's the girl who ends out to be kind of badass towards the end. But
are you talking about the white chick?
No, I'm talking about the
the main girl.
The main girl. Yeah.
Okay, this is one of my other negatives that I want to get into. I was only like behind one person in this film. Everyone else I hated so much. Yep. The one person
Ben, was it?
No. Wait, was Ben the which one was Ben?
Ben was the grocery store guy.
Okay, I felt sorry for Ben in the beginning because there's such like random dialogues, like where Ben's like, "Hey, could I work at the front of the grocery store?" He's trying to like gain a new position at the grocery store, and one of the guys is like, "I just don't think you would help the store."
Yeah, you'd be bad for business.
Yes, it's like you feel bad for him.
It's like, what?
But then as the movie progresses, he just says some really dumb shit where I'm like, no wonder you work at the back of the grocery store. The person that I was behind was the main chick from Daredevil, because she was actually smart. She actually did things for the group. She served in Afghanistan, so she did a lot of parkour and stuff like that, which I really liked. Everyone else totally hated throughout this entire film. Now, granted, when people start dying off, like they knew exactly who they needed to kill off first in this film. Yeah. I think they were self-aware. It was almost like they were like making this film. They were like, okay, like we have to kill this guy. He's gonna annoy the audience. Mm-hmm. As far as like my main issues with the film, essentially what this is a PG-13 Saw. Now
it follows like the exact same kind of film as Saw 5. If you've ever seen that, it's like 5 people that have troubled pasts and like mysterious lives have to come together and overcome typical character flaws to get a task completed. The only difference is that in Saw 5 it's supposed to be all of them that succeed, as opposed to in this one it's only one of them that's supposed to succeed. And it's just, it's so dumb. Like, it's been done before. It's super cliche. Yeah. And I just felt the entire movie was just lazy.
The first Saw I really liked because it was a drama. It was about like, it was a mystery. You were trying to figure out like who.
But then that wasn't really, well, I guess it was a survival of the fittest film, but it wasn't like a 5 people.
Exactly. That's why I like it though, is because it's a very almost simplistic story where you have like these 2 guys in a room. And they're essentially just trying to get out of there, and they're met with a dilemma, and they learn things about each other. Whereas the reason why the other Saw films kind of tanked was because you had that 5-person scenario, and it suddenly didn't become about the characters. It suddenly became about like how creative could we make these traps. And granted, this movie itself, the clues are creative and the different scenarios that they're put into are creative. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, I don't give a shit about anybody in this. I don't give a shit about anybody in this movie. Like,
oh man,
like absolutely. Like even the main girl, it's like. So
the dialogue, and I do want to touch on this.
Yes, and the setups too, where she's talking to her teacher.
Yeah, the dialogue in this movie is atrocious.
Absolutely.
There's so many forced lines. There's so many just terrible deliveries that are either, too exuberant or not exuberant enough. For example, you're in a room that's becoming an oven. It's got heating panels on the ceiling. It's getting really, really hot, and nobody cares. Like, they're all like, oh, well, let's crack jokes. And let's look over here. Let's look over.
This felt like
that's urgent.
Yes.
Like, you need to move. And then they get out of it, and they're just like, oh, well, I know I just almost blew myself up, but, I'm sure that was just a part of the joke. Like, we're not actually going to get hurt.
One of them, the nerdy kid, he thinks it's still a game.
Talk about immersive.
What's wrong with you? That was real.
Yep.
Like, and then, Daredevil chick, he's like, what's wrong with you? That's obviously real. And then it's like, throughout the film, when someone finally dies, they're like, I guess this is real. No shit! It's real.
And even then they still don't take it seriously. Like even then they're still talking about like like they'll crack jokes about things.
Yeah.
It's just like one of your friends just freaking died.
Yeah.
And you're like they still don't take it seriously. And I mean the traps themselves, like he said, were elaborate. And some of the clues and the ways that they find the clues, just I don't really buy.
Yeah.
Like for example, the Rudolph thing. Like there's no way that guy.
Out of all of them,
yeah. I mean, I know that was kind of designed there for him, but that is like he literally looks at it. And I was sitting there in the theater at the same time because they need a 7-letter code to get through it, and they have on the wall you'll go down in history and like a bunch of antlers, so it's supposed to be Santa's reindeer. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, so what reindeer have 7 letters in their name? And he just like looks at it and he's just like, Rudolph, it's Rudolph. And then it's like, of course it was, because it furthers the plot. So that's what they do, and that's literally how they solved it.
This film that I have a problem with it as well. We were talking about the dialogue and the acting itself. This feels like a direct to TV movie, like almost like something that you would see off of the like CW.
This is like a very B-list. Like it's not scary. It's kind of, it has suspenseful parts, but the part of suspense that makes you really care about a film is you have to like the characters. You have to be concerned for if they're going to be okay. This one, I don't, like, neither of us cared. We're sitting there, like, I was sitting there the whole time, like, looking at the movie through my knees, and it's just like, I'm just sitting there thinking, I turned to you a couple times, I'm like, this is still not over. This is still not over. And that's another thing I want to touch on. This movie ends 3 times. 3 freaking times. So they have the first part where it's like, oh, you made it out, and then they kill the game master, and then like, oh, well, this is over, we're going to be okay. And then they bring the girl back to the building, and it's like, oh, well, it's been abandoned. It's like, oh, no, none of this actually happened here.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then they actually end it 4 times. And then they have like, 6 months later, they meet up in a like a cafe on Lake Michigan.
They're having like Survivor's Guild. Like the girl is. And she approaches the guy that she survived with. And
one thing I want to talk about that meeting in particular is 6 months. That guy went from a stock guy in a grocery store to, I'm like the head of development for some vegan dog food.
What?
In 6 months?
In 6 months.
Like, I mean, like...
Yes.
It takes me 6 months to figure out how a new phone works. Like, much less get a job like that.
And then they decide, like, okay, so there's been, like, a cover-up. So we need to, like, expose these people who are running this game.
Yeah, we're going to New York. We're gonna
the ending and
no plan, by the way. It's like we're just gonna go to New York.
This film, the ending of this film, and it also showcases like some behind the scenes work that this organization is doing. They're testing these clues and scenarios in like a storage building or something like that. The ending to this film almost feels like an epilogue to a sequel that we're most likely not going to get, because this film is actually
not doing very well at the box office.
Is it really not?
Understanding, I don't think it's doing very well.
Okay,
but the very ending, it seems more like it would be at home as like an after credits sequence, because it's talking about we're going to go to Chicago, or we're going to go to New York rather, and
oh, that's right. You live like under like
I live
an airline.
I live right along the approach path to one of the runways at our local international airport. And anyway, but so they're getting on a plane and they're gonna go to New York. But the very ending is they set up a trap on an airplane. Who funded this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's an airplane. It's them testing it, obviously. At the very end, like it's just a big plane rig. And like, what's the probability of survival? Oh, it's 4%. And you hear this guy on a computer voice, because of course it is. He's like, it wouldn't be a game if there was no chance. Like, and then it just cuts to black and the film's over. Like,
also, like, the reasoning why...
I guess we should put a spoiler alert in this.
No, like, they know, like because it's always, like... Yeah, when it's always you, we have to go into, like, spoilers. Like, they know that. You guys know that, right? I'm going to get so much shit
I hope you do
comments.
now.
Yeah. So, the reason why, also, the character's motivations in doing this escape room is...
Money.
Money, and the main girl, like... I just didn't feel like it was written well enough. Like, so... a teacher approaches the main girl in the beginning. It's like, hey, listen.
Because she doesn't want to speak up in class.
She doesn't want to speak up in class. And the guy's like, hey, over Thanksgiving break, you should do something that like really scares you.
Try doing one thing that scares you over break, okay?
Yeah.
Isn't this like a science class? Why is
There's a quantum theory class.
Yeah, so why does he care whether or not this girl is social? Shouldn't he just care that, like, the girl makes good grades and stuff?
I mean, teachers genuinely care about their students.
Yeah.
Or at least they do at where I went to school, Purdue University, boiler up. So, I mean, the teachers genuinely care about their students. And if you're, like, she was knowledgeable on the subject because apparently she wrote an entire paper on this that, I can't remember what it was, but it was some quantum concept that he asked, what is it in class? And she obviously knew the answer because she tried to raise her hand. And then the teacher approached her after class and was like, hey, you need to be a little bit more daring. So
because you didn't raise her hand in class, you need to like be more daring.
I want you to do one thing that scares you over Thanksgiving break.
Like this is what I'm talking about. Like the writing and reasoning.
For most people, dealing with their family alone is a scary experience on Thanksgiving break.
You know what I just thought of? Like, so this teacher has to know that this girl, because the girl has a backstory in the film. The girl essentially survived a disaster on a plane.
They all have been the sole survivor of something.
That's why they are they're invited to this place. But this one girl specifically is well known because of this plane accident, and the other people there start to like kind of recognize her. Like, I think I saw you on TV. You would think this teacher, right, would be like aware of this girl,
some sort of horrific trauma that she
that this girl had been through, and then the guy would be like, just all of a sudden is like, you should do something scary. She already did do something scary.
That's why she is the way that she is, because
she's
going through post-traumatic stress disorder, and like, I mean, just in general, that kind of thing takes a toll on you. So
this script does not realize some of the holes that it has.
If you ended it right there in the abandoned building, where she's like, oh my God, I promise this actually happened, that would have been a much, much better ending, because it's chilling in the sense that, like, this happened, obviously we've seen it happen, and it's going to happen again because we don't have the people responsible for it. We can't hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. So that would have been a much better ending, as opposed to this, like, nonsense where we have an airplane and, like, oh, let's go to New York. Like, that would have been such a better ending, and the film probably would have done a lot better in terms of like reviews and things like that if they had just ended it there.
I feel like also what could have really, I don't know. I feel like the one thing that maybe could have made this film a little bit more successful in terms of
if it didn't exist,
reception. If it didn't exist, in terms of reception, if they were a little bit more self-aware, I feel.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times in this film where, that one guy, the older guy who's the trucker, and he's like that old guy.
The mine guy, yeah.
Like, what was the name, Mike?
Yeah, Mike.
Hi, my name's Mike. Have you ever seen that like episode of South Park where it's like the ziplining episode, and then whenever where they're like, so there's an episode of South Park where whenever like you're going on a group thing, like if you're doing something like ziplining, you're with a group, right?
Yeah.
And then you always come across that person that you're sitting next to, and he always tells you like his life story, where he's like, and long story short, we came here to Minnesota, and we're just long story short, ziplining.
Make a long story short, but to make a long story short. So anyway, long story short.
Why do people say long story short? They're not making it short, Stan.
And like, I just feel like that guy had a lot of potential to be that character, where if this film was like super self-aware of like what it had and tried to pick on a lot of those humorous tones that we kind of agree with in life, I feel like this could have been a much more enjoyable film in terms of that kind of humor aspect. But there's nothing creative in this film whatsoever.
No, I mean, the idea of like an escape room that kills you, I feel like that's something maybe you could make it work. But just when it fits in with all of the different cliches of like, all of these lone survivor type films and all of these survival of the fittest type films, it's to the point of cliche to where it's not enjoyable. It has zero rewatch value, and it's just the whole thing just seems forced. It seems like I'm watching a movie I've already seen.
This needed a lot more crazier scenes. Like, there's a scene in the film where I was like, what? Where, like, they're in a room and it's like static TV and it's just two of them and they start fighting.
The drug scene or whatever that was.
This movie needed more of that.
Yeah, that was...
In a good way, though.
That was weird. They have a trap room where they're like... Somehow they get some sort of hallucinogen and they're like hallucinating and they see this thing. It's like, oh, you better find the antidote. And then they just start like basically going through those Snapchat filters that make your eyes big and your teeth big.
It was almost like that scene from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 where like they're going into like hyperspeed on the ship and then Rocket Raccoon and Groot start to like have like those big distorted eyes. I immediately thought of that scene. I was like, why is this in this movie? Because a lot of the stuff that like the movie's tone that's already established. And then when it like gets that part, it's just it shouldn't have been there. But I feel like if more scenes like that were in this film, I think it would have been a little bit more successful if the film was more self-aware in itself.
If it was goofier, if they had like treated this as kind of a comedy type thing, I think it would have done a lot better.
Maybe like if it was like
one of those horror comedy things,
Scary Movie forward. Like I'm not saying that this should have been like a parody, but like the scene where Shaq and Dr. Phil are in the room.
Oh,
just
that
like,
was funny.
Like what if like this entire
you have
film
to make a.
What if this entire film was like that? I think we can go into like so much more specifics and examples, but I feel like what I'm trying to say is I feel like this film should have just been a little bit more creative and more outside the box. Speaking of box, there's a joke in the beginning of this film.
Oh yeah,
where the girl, right, who loses her family and she's going to stay at the college for Thanksgiving, and then her roommate is leaving to go see her family, and before she leaves, she gives her the box, like, hey, you got something in the mail. I'll leave you here while you play with your box. Because vagina jokes are so funny. Vagina jokes, flicking the bean, are just incredibly funny jokes that should be in PG-13 movies. Guys, I don't know whether or not to recommend this film to you.
I wouldn't. It's not good. If you've seen Saw 5... or Cabin in the Woods, which are the two movies I've been referencing that this is just so darn similar to.
Yeah.
You've seen this film already. It's that again. And the entire time I was sitting there, I was thinking, I've literally seen this before. And it's got next to no rewatch value. So honestly, sooner or later, it's going to come out on Netflix.
It's got to be on some kind of streaming service in order to make it for turn.
B- horror movies almost always end up on Netflix anyway, so you'll find it. If you really care about it that much, you'll find it.
One last thing I want to mention too, very brief, and then we're going to stop. I feel like, because you just mentioned Cabin in the Woods, right? And the reveal in that movie is so awesome.
Yes.
And spoilers for that movie, because I need to say that, because Cabin in the Woods, if you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, see it.
The end of Cabin in the Woods is one of the best horror movie endings I've ever seen.
It has also a really good cameo with
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, and in this film, I just didn't feel like the reveal of the mastermind, because I thought it was going to be a cameo.
Because that, Cabin in the Woods is the kind of thing, you slap the guy next to you and go, like, oh, that's cool. And then this one, it's just, like, literally, it's another room. It's like, oh, congratulations, you won. It's like,
who are you?
Yeah.
So, it just didn't stick out. And I wanted it to, honestly. Like, I wanted it to be creative, and, but I kind of had my doubts, too.
Yeah.
Because it is a January film. It's January 4th.
And, I mean, this is what happened, like, a couple years ago when we saw The Forest in January.
That's a thing. Like, is that every time when, January...
Every year starts with a just terrible horror... I wouldn't even call this a horror movie. I just call this a movie.
Like a suspense movie or of some
a
sort.
bad one. Just a bad movie.
At least it's not a Bye Bye Man. I would say that this is like a Truth or Dare. But have you seen Bye Bye Man? Have you?
I have not, but I've heard things.
Oh my lord, we got to talk about Bye Bye Man in the future.
No, we don't.
Or at least get drunk and watch Bye Bye Man.
Either way, I'm picking the next movie we see.
Okay.
All right. I didn't know we were doing that. I thought I was getting a pat on the back, but okay. Thank you.
All right, guys. So that was our review of The Escape Room or Escape Room. Is there a "the" in this title?
I don't know.
I don't care. Comment down below what you guys thought of this film. Like this video, share it, and please subscribe to Pixel Talk if you haven't yet for more movie reviews, game reviews, trailer reactions, and pop culture content. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbin Stuckey.
I am Stephen Van Ostenbridge.
Oh, that's right. I'm so
You
sorry.
gotta let me say my darn name.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But please subscribe. You guys are the reason why we keep seeing these horrible movies. So please subscribe. Make it worth our struggle. And thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world to Corbin and I.
We appreciate everything, you guys, and we just really hope that this year is amazing. We're going to try as hard as we can to see every movie this year, even if it's terrible. Well, I don't know, like me specifically. I don't know if you want to be along
I'll
for
go
the
with.
ride. Okay.
I'll go with. Why
And
not?
we
I've
just-
stuck with you through this much.
We just want to make this the best year for this YouTube channel possible. So
Absolutely.
subscribe. We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. This is Pixel Talk. That was fun.